Hi there, and welcome to the webinar How to Sell Like Amazon Using AI Personalization. Today, you'll learn how to use strategies that Amazon has been using for many years to keep customers coming back to buy again and again. These learnings have really never been more relevant than today, where giants like Amazon and Temu are increasingly covering the market with resources that basically dwarf most other businesses. For many web shops, one-time buyers can make up as much as 70% of the entire customer base, which is a huge amount, of course. That's customers that found something relevant and were able to place an order, but for some reason never came back. And these are the most expensive kinds of customers, as you have to pay for the emails and ads to get them onto your site. Companies like Amazon and Temu can so easily outbid you on these platforms, so getting more and more repeat purchases is really critical for your business. So that was just a brief introduction. So the ones who are here are sure that you've reached the right webinar. Just to make sure that you can all hear me and see me and also see the slides, I'd like you to say hello in the chat function that you have available here. So let me know where you're joining from and connect with some fellow e-commerce enthusiasts here. It also lets me know that, of course, that there's a connection between you and me. And I can see people asking for subtitles. I don't think it's possible to have subtitles on this, unfortunately. But you'll get the recording afterwards where it might be possible to have it later. So, for today's agenda, we're going to go through, first of all, an introduction of who I am, why I'm not just a random guy on the internet, but what my experience is in terms of talking about e-commerce. So, and next we're going to go through Amazon's personalized product recommendations with an emphasis on how they started out, how they built their system, and why it works so incredibly well. Then I'm going to talk about personalization at scale and what that means for companies like Amazon, but also what it means for businesses that are way smaller and how they can actually use some of those teachings as well, before we dive into some very concrete examples of Amazon using personalization strategies to make their business better. I'm going to focus on 3 examples, even though there's more, of course, and those 3 are the ones I believe are most critical for businesses to run if they want to emulate what Amazon is doing so well. Then I'm also going to talk a bit more about how Clerk's AI works, in a bit more detail. It's not going to be technical, but more on an overall level of how an AI approach can work on your web shop to get the same kinds of results that Amazon is getting. And then lastly, there's going to be a Q&A session where any questions will be answered. You're also more than welcome to just send questions throughout the webinar. I'll try to answer all of them, of course, depending on how many you have, because we also need to get to the end of the webinar. But please don't hesitate writing questions in the section where all of you are also writing hi and hello and hi and so on. And then I'll take as many as I can throughout. Worst case scenario, you can always answer or get answers to your questions from our support team in case I, for some reason, can't answer them here. And thank you so much for already writing. It's nice to see that we have a clear connection coming through. So without further ado, let's dig into it. So who am I? My name is Stefan Lawrence Olsen. I've been working at Clerk for more than 11 years now, which is basically a lifetime in the IT business. And of course, at Clerk, I've been working with e-commerce conversion rate optimization as the primary goal. I've been through a lot of different roles in Clerk, ranging from technical support over head of customer success to now where I'm product evangelist, which is a very fancy way of saying that I am a product expert that understands Clerk inside out, but also understands how to optimize businesses using AI, using automation, using all sorts of tools that are available on the market today. I'm a nerd by nature, and I say that with all the kindness in the world because I believe that a lot of the great things in the world are built by nerds who love knowledge. And what I personally thrive from is when I can automate all the boring stuff that is necessary to do so I can have more time for all the fun stuff. And that's never been more relevant than today. 5 months ago, I became a father for the first time. So now I want to have even more time to spend with my son by automating all of the other things I need to do, like vacuuming, for example, or whatever it could be, so I can spend more quality time with him. Okay, so let's dig into Amazon's personalized product recommendations and what that's meant for their business. To really get an idea of what Amazon is, let's start by rewinding to 1994, which is a long time ago. Jeff Bezos founded Amazon as an online bookstore, literally working out of his garage in Bellevue in Washington. He just left like a comfortable Wall Street job because the internet was he really believed that the internet was going to completely change how people would shop. And I think it's safe to say that he was right. We can see that today, of course, also, right? But he already saw that in 1994 and decided to do something about it. So the original idea behind Amazon was an online bookstore, really. Books was the perfect starting point because they were so easy to ship. Again, they were basically all square, right? They were universally in demand and they came in the millions. So there was such a wide range of customers that would be interested in buying books, and especially because they were so easy to handle online. But then as Amazon expanded their catalog and doing that quickly as well, it started to include everything from electronics to clothing to movies to basically anything you can imagine. Then one very big challenge emerged from that. How do you help millions of customers find what they're looking for within this gigantic sea of options? So in 1998, Amazon introduced one of its most game-changing innovations, also today, I would say, which is the personalized product recommendations. They launched an algorithm called item-to-item collaborative filtering. So instead of trying to match what the customers did, like customer to customer, like other customers also did this, it actually matched products to products instead based on real-time behavior. There's a number of technical reasons why that was smart, but the general idea is that item relations tend to change very little. So they could calculate a lot of relations between this book that was compared to this book or this shoe that matched this pair of leggings. And because it doesn't change that much, they could then very quickly fetch really good recommendations based on what each user was doing on the site. So it was much more real time and it was much faster and also much more relevant, which of course is the whole point, right? That's actually how the now famous customers who bought this item also bought feature came into life. It didn't just make the experience better, it actively increased their conversions, it boosted the satisfaction for customers, and it became one of Amazon's most powerful growth engines. This move also set the standard for the entire e-commerce industry because Amazon showed that the world relevance drives revenue, and personalization at scale isn't just possible, it's also really essential. I can see somebody has written in Italian, and unfortunately, I am trying to learn Italian actually, but I'm not very good at it yet. So I'd really like you to answer, write questions in English, and then I'd be happy to reply to them. Okay, so let's focus more down on what personalization at scale actually means. Everyone knows the story of David and Goliath. It's the classic underdog tale. A young shepherd boy defeats a giant warrior, not through brute force, but with strategy, precision, and the right tools. That's exactly what we're seeing in e-commerce today. So Amazon and a few other giants are the Goliaths. They set sky-high expectations when it comes to personalized experiences. But most retailers, they're the Davids, expected to compete with just a fraction of the resources. The good news is that this is actually a fight that David can win. And there's this misconception that personalization at scale is only possible if you are an enterprise brand the size of Amazon with massive engineering teams. But I want to break that myth. And as you also see, the playing field has really changed here with modern predictive AI. And somebody is asking, what does it mean that they matched products to products based on real-time behavior? I mentioned it briefly, without going into too technical terms. What it means is instead of starting the calculations on the user level, they start on the item level. So if you're selling books and games and movies and clothing and so on, they start by internally realizing which items are associated, because that rarely changes. A pair of shoes will often be related to a pair of, let's say, pants of the same brand and so on. And they could calculate all of that internally to figure out which products are connected to each other in which way. Then when a user browses, let's say, a pair of shoes, then because Amazon has already made the connection that these shoes are related to these pants, they can very quickly pull out those pants as a recommendation. The alternative would be user to user. So they would have to analyze how many users click this and then what did they click on afterwards, and then how many are doing that, which would be much slower because they would have to wait for a lot of users to do the same things. But at the same time, it would also be a lot of noise because we tend to browse a lot of random products before we end up buying ones that are actually relevant for us. And that's why analyzing it on an item level, which items are related, and then pulling it out based on what users are browsing, that was a much faster approach. Of course, there's a lot more to this in technical terms, but that's the basic reality of what they did because they had this massive item catalog. So what does personalization at scale truly mean? Personalization at scale means delivering a unique experience to every single shopper across every touch point instantly. So that can be from product recommendations to search results and from email content over to on-site messaging, really even for first-time or anonymous users. It's real-time, it's automatic, and it's also doable. In this webinar, I'm going to focus a lot on the recommendations aspects of things because that's what Amazon is doing, among other things, of course, doing super well and has been doing well basically ever since the website came live and they started having all of these different products that they needed to show recommendations for. So in practice, what we talk about here as personalization at scale is recommendations that are shown to customers regardless of which page they enter at the right time with the right products that are relevant for them. And as you'll see soon, especially on 3 key pages, you can do something really, really great for increasing both the conversion rate and the average basket size by presenting the right products at the right time. So why does personalization matter to customers? When people feel understood, they tend to respond. I think a good example of this is that I virtually only buy clothes from T-Shoppen, which is a Danish company, and I promise I'm not being paid to say this. They rarely change their core products, which are comfortable pants and shirts and socks, among other things. But they often have sales where I can get like 3 new pieces of clothing for the price of 1. Further, their email marketing really makes me feel part of the brand because they use videos extensively to show the founder running around in the warehouse finding new items to show and why he thinks this is cool and so on. It feels so personal because it feels like I'm in the warehouse with them when they do these videos. This combined with the fact that their email marketing really tends to promote what I am normally looking for. Again, these sales on the same type of pants and shirts and so on that I normally wear just keeps me coming back, honestly. Because it really feels like whenever I get something from them, it actually is meaningful to me, not just the overall user base, but me personally. And personalized shopping experiences drive more revenue. It keeps shoppers engaged. It turns one-time buyers into loyal customers. So it's not just a nice to have anymore. It's actually really critical for driving growth in this day and age. I think another example of why it's so important is that it's impossible for e-tailers to predict any kind of interaction that customers can have. I've seen some really strange examples in my time at Clerk, and I still vividly remember analyzing a customer's orders to discover that one visitor had come to the site, added a toilet seat to the cart, and then proceeded to buy an entire toilet from the recommendations on the cart page. And to this day, I still have no idea what the concept behind this was. Why were you even on the site to buy a toilet seat if you don't have a toilet to begin with? So it's just this concept that it's impossible to predict just how users will interact. And that's why personalization through AI is so crucial, because that way you can start actually showing products that you would never have thought of to show yourself. Then somebody is asking, which is the Clerk functionality that allows Amazon to do this in real time? I think it's important to also say that Amazon, of course, does not use Clerk. Clerk is doing a lot of the things that Amazon is doing, but with a fraction of the input data needed. And I'm going to come into this more in a later stage at the webinar, so that question will be answered. Then someone is asking, how do personalized recommendations boost customer engagement? I'll also get more into this as we show Amazon's examples. But the idea here is that the more customers feel understood, the higher the chances are that they'll interact with the catalog, because it's not just random products that's relevant to a small subset. It's actually relevant to me. Just like if you have a really good sales assistant in a physical store that just understands what you need to see. Okay, so let's go into the meat of the matter, which is how to use Amazon's 3 personalization strategies. And here I'll start by explaining exactly what it is Amazon is doing and why it's so good. And then for each of these strategies, I'll explain how you can achieve the same thing with Clerk on your website. So, okay, let's dig into it. I want to highlight these 3 core strategies, as I said, and these are not random. It's because it's some of the things that Amazon have been doing for so long, and still actually a lot of web shops that I see are not doing anything at all similar to this, even though it's fairly straightforward to do with predictive AI through tools like Clerk. The first one is the homepage, and Amazon really nails personalization right from the homepage, honestly. So what you see here is a very recent example of my personal homepage on Amazon. And it's probably not hard to spot that I'm a pretty big fan of horror and sci-fi books, especially right now. I recently did like an an experiment with myself where I was not allowed to watch television for an entire month alone. And of course, it ended up meaning that I browse a lot of books and read a lot of books instead. And Amazon picked up on that basically immediately, which is why my homepage is being shown like this now. So basically, one of the first things they do when I land on the homepage is greet me by name. You can see that on the first two arrows here on 1 and 2, where in the upper left corner it says, "Hello, Stefan," and shipping to. I've just written nowhere because I didn't want to show my personal address here. But the idea is that already from here, I feel greeted as a human being because it knows where I'm normally getting my items shipped to and what my name is. And even on arrow 2, as you can see here, it says "Hello, Stefan" again for my orders and for my account in general, for the lists, anything that I use on Amazon. So I really feel like I'm coming back to a web shop that already knows who I am. And with that, also shows me products that are very, very likely to catch my attention. So apart from just these two steps in the very top that greets me, as you can see on arrow 3 and 4, they also are really, really good at then personalizing the whole page to it. Basically, the whole page adapts to what I'm interested in, who I am, what I've done. If I've recently placed an order, the homepage will even show that order, and in some cases, urge me to buy again if it's coffee or protein powder or anything that you would normally buy, more than just a single time, right? Giving me access to tracking and even similar products. It's just like a whole universe from the homepage that already makes me feel like I'm coming home to a place that I already know. The really interesting thing is that the personalization on Amazon's homepage doesn't actually stop just because you're not logged in. Even as a guest, Amazon starts tailoring the experience based on just a single click. And that's the power of this item-to-item collaboration. Just the fact that I clicked on, a specific sci-fi novel, and because they have all the connections on which novels are related to that, they already have a pretty good idea in which part of the catalog I likely need to see products. And somebody's asking, how does Amazon tailor content for people who visit their site for the first time? And that's basically what I was talking into here, that just from the single click, because they have relations to other products based on the one product I already clicked, it knows in which area I should see more products. And then sometimes it goes a little outside of that. If I've clicked headphones, for example, there's a chance I might be interested in not just over-ear headphones, but in-ear headphones or mobile phones, or basically other things that are related as technology. I can't count the amount of times I've impulsively bought something simply because some products on the homepage piqued my interest with a new gadget or a book. It really works, and it makes me want to come back to the homepage of Amazon because I know that I'm being greeted with something that actually catches my interest, so it doesn't feel like a waste of time. The primary point is that Amazon's homepage is never static. It changes dynamically for each visitor, creating a familiar and relevant experience every single time you go there. That's not just good UX, it's really smart business. Like the personalized menus, the tailored categories, AI-driven recommendations, they all work together to keep the customers engaged and coming back again and again. So the takeaway is, your homepage should never look the same to a new and returning customer. If you want loyalty and repeat sales, then it starts by showing people something that's clearly meant for them and not for everyone else. Now, of course, Amazon has virtually limitless resources and massive amounts of customer data. But here's the good news. You don't need to be Amazon to offer this kind of personalization. With Clerk, you can replicate a lot of these same experiences, and it works with the very first click. Even if a visitor isn't logged in, our recommendations tool starts personalizing based on behavior. The moment someone clicks on a product, the homepage begins to adapt, showing more relevant items immediately. And when the visitor is logged in, we can even go deeper. Now we're not just working with clicks on a single product, we're using actual purchase history. And that allows you to show products that customers are likely to reorder, or accessories to things they already bought, alternatives, basically all kinds of products that are relevant based on whatever they've purchased in the past. So for example, if someone bought a pair of football boots, like in the example here I show on a sports store, for example, they might see the matching shin guards or things that protect your arms and so on. Or like in the Arrow 2 example here, if they prefer the brand Montaigne, the recommendations will reflect this by showing pants and boots from that brand. Again, all personalized and different depending on which individual visitor is coming to the page. Somebody's writing, I don't know if it makes sense, but I had read about a counter trend that letting algorithms do everything just based on user experience is not always a good thing, because showing them new things they never browsed might give them a chance to discover other things they hadn't thought about. That's a very good point, by the way, Camilla. And one of the things that's important to understand about at least Clerk's system is that we have logics that are meant to be personalized and other logics that are meant to be more broadly available. So what we'll talk about later, for example, with alternatives on a product page would normally not be personalized for this exact reason, that it actually makes more sense to figure out what is the most general alternatives that most customers are looking to buy here to avoid it being too specific and too tainted by what you've already browsed maybe. But on the homepage, it makes a lot of sense because here, what Clerk is doing is still making them discover new items because of the connections in the product catalog. So if you've browsed the brand Montaigne, for example, then yes, some of those products might be there. But if it's shoes you've browsed, then we might also show shoes from other brands, if that makes sense. In Clerk, it all comes down to the AI predicting what's most likely to sell to whoever user is coming onto the site now. But you're absolutely right. There is a lot of places where it makes sense to personalize on the individual visitor's history, but you can also think about it as personalization when you still understand what they're doing on a specific page and then show the right items based on that selection, basically. So again, both things are actually relevant, but it depends on the context as most other things, really. So I think one of the best parts about using Clerk is that you don't need massive amounts of data to make it work. Again, Amazon's system, the algorithms that they built there, it does require that massive amount of data to create the connections that are meaningful. But with Clerk's AI, the recommendations is designed to deliver this high quality personalization, but with minimal input. So even smaller or mid-sized web shops can offer homepage experiences that feel just as smart as Amazon's, even just with a fraction of the orders that Amazon has. So whether your visitor is new or anonymous or logged in or a repeat buyer, you can personalize this experience from the very first interaction that they have. Okay, so another great personalization strategy that Amazon has mastered is how they handle the product page itself. It's what I briefly mentioned before, where you can do a lot of things when customers land on the individual product pages to still make them feel understood. I think a lot of e-commerce stores, they tend to treat the product page as a dead end, where either you buy the item or you bounce. And actually, this bounce happens quite a lot. You can almost imagine it, right? You're searching for a new t-shirt or a new pair of pants on Google. You go into a website and you find that it's not in your size, or it's not the right color, or it's a bit too expensive. So you just bounce immediately back to Google. That's bad for several reasons. The two major ones, of course, being that you're losing a sale, but you're also signaling to Google and other search engines that your website wasn't relevant because they didn't continue into the website. So what Amazon is doing here is entirely different, of course. They never just show the product and then nothing else. One of the other reasons this is important is that it's a common fallacy that visitors will want to browse your category pages. If they don't know your brand yet, chances are that they'll just bounce again because it just takes too much time to try and find the products you need through the categories unless you already have an established relationship with your brand. So Amazon does the opposite. They use the space to keep you engaged, even if the product isn't the exact right one for you. So one of the smartest things they do is placing dedicated alternatives right above the product description. It might seem like a small detail, but it's super effective because at this stage, it's not about cross-selling. It's about saving the conversion and, of course, minimizing the bounce rate. If the customer is second-guessing this product they're viewing, again, not the right color or price, then Amazon makes sure that there's something else to catch their attention. So instead of losing the customer, they show similar products that might be a better fit, other options from the same category, or sometimes even personalized suggestions based on my individual browsing history. So, and you can see that here on the screenshot as well, where on arrow 1, we have frequently bought together, which is items that are most normally bought with this exact one. And then it's what other customers buy after they view this exact product. So it's still related somehow, but in different categories and so on, just to make sure that the visitor is never left on that page, but always has something new that they can browse to. So many visitors will come to the product page from Google and ChatGPT and other search engines, and they might or might not have landed on the right product. For example, recently I was searching for a book in the Silo series, and I landed on the first book, which is actually covered by the TV show I recently saw. Through Amazon recommendations, I realized there were 2 more books in the series covering parts of the story that were not covered by the show, which caused me to just buy both books immediately. And had these recommendations not been there, then I likely would not have learned about them, at least at that time, and I for sure wouldn't have bought anything at that time. Then I see a question coming in. Can I greet customers by their names on the homepage if I use Clerk? It's not something you would do directly in Clerk. Think about Clerk as delivering the recommendations that are being shown on the site, but the functionality of showing the name itself is usually something that's done in your web shop. I know in Shopify, at least, it's fairly easy because you have access to the customer object, as it's called, when they're logged in. And most other web shop platforms have a way to do this. In some cases, it might require a developer, but regardless, the combination of being able to greet them in the web shop platform itself and showing the recommendations through Clerk, that's how you can achieve this functionality from Amazon. Okay, so if you go back to the alternatives on the product page, basically all of this keeps the customer moving forward instead of leaving the site. It's subtle, but it's really powerful. And it shows that the goal here isn't only to increase the order value, it's also to reduce the drop-off and help customers find something that they are likely to buy, basically keeping them engaged. It's a smart use of personalization, not just to sell more, but to actually make more people convert as well. Okay, so let's talk about how you can use personalization on your own product pages. One of the simplest ways of doing this is to add recommendation sliders. With Clerk, you can show alternative products, complementary items, and also suggestions based on what the customer has looked at or bought before. This helps in 3 key areas. It increases the chance of a sale, especially if the original product isn't the right fit. It keeps people on your site longer and thus reducing bounce rates. And it helps customers discover more of your products, which just makes the whole shopping experience better. You can mix different types of recommendations banners like similar products or bestsellers or items from the same category, but we highly recommend using at least Clerk's best alternatives logic because that automatically identifies the closest similar items that the visitor is most likely to buy. The goal here isn't to overwhelm the customer, it's just to give them more useful options in case the product they clicked wasn't quite what they needed. Okay, so let's talk about the last strategy that Amazon uses here, and this is a super important one. Amazon really nails personalization after a customer adds a product to the basket. So basically, for most web shops, there's one of 2 ways that you handle the step after adding a product. Either they stay on the product page and see like a small drop down that confirms the action, or they're basically being kicked out to the cart page to get them to actually convert. And both of those approaches are not really helpful in terms of increasing the amount of products that is in a basket. So instead of doing these 2 things, what Amazon does is it takes you to a dedicated cross-sell page. We call it the power step. It can also be called an add to basket page, but it isn't just a formality. It's a key moment in the shopping journey that does 3 things very well. First of all, as you can see on arrow 1, it confirms that your product was successfully added to the basket. This might seem like a very fundamental and silly thing to do, but you'd be surprised at how quickly customers get confused if it's not very clear that the action they just did was actually successful. So by showing this, it's just very clear that now it is in the basket. And the second thing is that it makes it super easy and direct to go directly to checkout. That's on arrow 2, as you can see here. If you're ready to buy, the buy button is right there, and it's yellow and it's quick and easy to see. So you can just really easily act on that and go to checkout in case you don't want to buy anything else. But then thirdly, this is where the magic happens. It uses the rest of the page to recommend even more relevant products. These are tailored suggestions based on your browsing behavior, your previous purchases, or what other customers have normally bought with this item. Sometimes it's accessories, sometimes it's bestsellers, trending items, items on sale. It really depends on the category and context. This approach is a huge improvement over the usual options I just explained, because staying on the product page or being sent to the cart is not really a good way to keep the momentum going. It basically stops you in your tracks or almost kicks you out. So with this power step page or add to basket page, it keeps the shopping momentum going without adding friction because it's still so easy to see what you can do if you don't want to buy anything else. And because it's personalized, it drives significantly higher upsell rates and conversions. Again, it isn't just good UX, it's a highly optimized revenue driving step in the customer journey. I fairly regularly talk to customers that are a bit worried about this page being too invasive and making it hard to check out and so on. But what I can say is there's a reason why Amazon has been doing this for more than, 25 years now. And of course, I have seen one terrible example where it ended up decreasing the conversion rate, but that was because the page looked entirely different to the rest of the website. If you do this correctly and you make it an integrated part of the website, then it can only increase your conversion rate. and also of course, your basket size, because it actually makes it clearer what happened and makes it easy to go to the checkout and to buy the order. But then because you also help them keep the shopping momentum going, there's a much higher chance that they'll buy some more and then convert. Again, now the great thing is you don't need Amazon scale or the engineering teams to create this kind of upsell experience. With Clerk, you can fairly easily build a fully personalized add to cart page that not only confirms the customer's action, but actively drives more sales. Again, we deliver the recommendations for the page, and it's fairly easy usually for a developer on your side to set this up as a step after after adding a product to the basket. And again, here's one key insight that Amazon has clearly figured out. You never lose by showing just one more recommendation slider. It's that simple. There's no downside. Worst case is that the customer ignores it, but even if just one of those sliders leads to an extra single sale per month, it's already worth it. And remember, the alternative is to just show them your footer. That's not exactly helping conversions. As you can see here on the screenshots, then for the left screenshot, the arrow 1 shows some related products to the product I just added to the cart. The second one shows some recommendations based on my previous visitor history, before then going over to the third one showing bestsellers. On the right one is an example of a simpler power step that shows just a single banner, but is maybe a bit more clean. It's still much better than the 2 other approaches, but again, we highly recommend showing at least 3 or 4 banners here because it just really doesn't hurt. Somebody asked for the page before how many recommendation sliders should be put on the product pages. And here, as I mentioned, I recommend generally 2 at least, the best alternatives and the best complementary ones. Some customers also see some benefits in showing products you recently viewed, for example, further down on the product page to also keep some history going there. But at least the alternatives and complementary one are most important. Then somebody asked, do customers like this type of page? And I think this question maybe came while I was talking. But yes, I really see that it's a page that increases both conversion rate and also the basket size. As long as it's done correctly and made as an integrated part of the website, I've never seen it do anything but increase the business. And it's also why Amazon keeps doing it and has been doing it for so many different years. Then somebody's asking if there's a way to make sure that sliders don't show the same products when they're right next to each other. That's a really good question. And yes, that's possible in Clerk. It's also fairly easy actually. Normally when I explain how to do it to customers, it's actually just a simple addition to the scripts that you add, where you can tell it that this top banner must show any product that's relevant, the next one must exclude from the first one, third from the first and second, and so on. And you can even configure it in a way so it's only the first row of products that's excluded. So at least on the first view, it never shows the same items, just to make it very clear that it's unique and you can see a lot of different items. The reason why we also chose to do it like this, where you can actually separate it so it's only the first row that's not being duplicated, is I have tried this a number of times as well, where it's the 3rd or the 4th time that I'm presented with a product that I make the decision to actually buy it. That's also why it's not necessarily a problem to show the same product in an alternative for one and also for the next product and so on, because sometimes we need to get exposed to products multiple times before we make the decision to actually buy it. But because it just looks better in general and provides a deeper insight into the catalog, yes, we provide this easy way to make sure that there are no duplicates either at all in the sliders or at least in the first slide when you just browse the page initially. When you're setting up your add to cart page with Clerk, here's what we recommend doing. Oh, sorry, I'm just skipping ahead here. We recommend using at least 4 recommendation sliders, each based on a different logic. This creates variety and increases the chance of showing just the right product for different kinds of customers. We recommend that you start with these 4 types, which I also briefly showed on the screenshot before. At least recommendations based on the products that were just added to the cart. This is perfect for the accessories, like bundle opportunities. If you buy a bike, for example, then of course you might need a bike lock as well that goes with it. Clerk is also directionally aware, so we know that just because you buy a bike lock, you're not necessarily going to buy a new bike, unless we can see that happens a lot on the website. But otherwise, it would likely be, pedal reflexes or other things for the bike lock. The next one could be, for example, visitor recommendations or recommendations based on all items in the cart, because our complementary products can work both for the single product, but also for everything that's in the cart. So for example, if you've already added, let's say, a new blazer and a new pair of pants and also a new shirt, then Clerk might recommend the perfect tie that goes well with that entire set. The third one could then be recommendations based on the customer's entire shopping history or visitor history if they're not logged in, because this adds a personalized touch that's relevant for anything you've bought in the past. Clerk also has a recency bias, so if you've placed like 20 orders, then the majority of the recommendations will be focused on your latest orders, as that's usually what's most relevant to you. And then finally, the broad appeal sliders, like the popular products overall, items that are trending, or even products currently on sale. Because that way you sort of get up a funnel where the first slider is the most relevant to what you just did, which was adding a specific product to the cart. And then you go all the way down to being very broad and try to sell based on price if you couldn't sell based on relevance in the beginning. This mix keeps the page engaging and relevant, and most importantly, optimized for conversion, right? It's simple, but also a powerful way to turn a fairly routine moment in the shopping journey into something that actually grows revenue. So those were the 3 strategies that Amazon does that I also highly recommend that you do on your web shop. So finally here, let me just discuss a little bit more about how Clerk's AI works. I'm not going to go into super technical details, but just on an overall level, what it means when I say that Clerk is a predictive AI for recommendations, and of course the other tools that we have. So there are different types of AI, and I think it's important to know the difference, especially now. Generative AI is the one that we talk a lot about these days. It's AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude that creates things like text, images, or even code, and does an increasingly good job at this. The core of Clerk uses something called predictive AI, which is a different kind of AI. Instead of creating, it looks at what shoppers are doing and then predicts what they're likely to do next to show the next best product that they're likely to buy. That's how it recommends the right product at the right time, basically on any kind of page, and especially on the 3 pages that we just talked about. In essence, you can think about generative AI as an artist that creates a painting, while predictive AI is a weather forecaster that looks at previous data points to predict what will happen in the future. Clerk actually also has a product that combines these two, which is our automated chat function that allows you to talk to Clerk's predictive AI, in human terms. So you can do a lot of amazing things with the combination of these. For recommendations specifically, the predictive AI is what causes Clerk to understand exactly what to show to each user. So how do we do it? First, it connects all products in the catalog. Which products are similar to each other, which are bought together, which are bestsellers in each category, and so on. Then it watches what shoppers do, what they click on, what they search for, what they buy, and then it quickly learns what each person is probably looking for and shows the right products in real time. And here's something important. Clerk is completely cookieless and privacy-first oriented. It means that we don't rely on tracking personal data or storing cookies on the shopper's computer. Instead, we use order data or transactional data, which means products that are bought together and when. And all of this is combined with anonymous session data, what someone is doing right now to personalize the experience. Basically, Clerk doesn't care who someone is. They just care that someone is doing something in this session. And then it uses all the transactional data to figure out which part of the catalog should be personalized to whoever is browsing right now. So even first-time or anonymous visitors get relevant recommendations without sacrificing privacy. And it works everywhere, both on your site, in emails, in search, and even in chat, as I mentioned before. And with that was the end of at least the content part of this webinar. If you found it interesting what I'm talking about here, we'd be happy to talk to you about how Clerk can help your business. We offer a free audit where you can get a one-to-one session for free with a conversion rate expert. And here what we'll do is we'll benchmark your website against your industry standard. We'll show you how you compare with your top 3 competitors. And then lastly, we'll present 3 concrete ways where you can prove your average order value and conversion rate using AI. So simply go to Clerk.io/free audit to sign up for this now. You'll also get a follow-up email after this webinar where you'll have the link in case you're interested in it. And with that, let's go over to the Q&A session in case anyone has more questions. I'll just see if there's something I've missed. It doesn't look like it. I think I've actually answered all of the questions that's coming throughout. So if you have any more questions, then now is the time to post them. In case you think of something later, you're also more than welcome to reach out to our support team, who you can reach either on our website at Clerk.io or in our help desk at help.clerk.io, or also if you already are a Clerk customer, then in your Clerk admin panel. Good. Someone is asking, why don't you use the item-to-item model you just described? Using historical data has the limit of lacking data in case of low order volumes. Really good question. And I will say, Amazon's model is of course very specific. Clerk actually does something very much like that on top of the transactional data. So, for example, for the alternative products that we have, it's highly attribute focused. So the way that we figure out what a good alternative is to literally compare what are the closest ones in terms of names and categories and brand and price and so on. And then we add the transactional layer on top of it. So we don't just show the random items that might be related, but actually the ones that most customers are likely to buy. So you can think about it as an extension of the item-to-item, collaborative filtering, but with a lot of smarter rules on top of it to allow it to work with even smaller data sets. So of course, the concept of it is sort of the same, but there's a lot more layers to it in Clerk's AI to make sure we can work both with no sales history really, but also just with smaller sales histories and smaller catalogs in general. Then somebody asks, I want to use recommendations. How much does it cost? It's a little hard for me to answer like very specifically, but on our website, you can go to Clerk.io, and in the header, you'll find pricing. Our pricing is based on usage. So it means that you only pay for how many recommendations you show, for example, or how many searches are being made. Clerk just wants you to generate as much revenue as you can for the usage. So it really depends on the size of your web shop, of course, and how many visitors you have when you come to the site. And I will say the way it works is I have a colleague in sales that used to say it very well, that the more expensive it gets, the cheaper it gets, because the idea is that the more usage you have, the cheaper each usage becomes. So as you grow in tiers, of course, it's going to get a little more expensive, but each usage is actually going to be decreased in price, which means that you generate even more from each visitor viewing your recommendations or search results or what it could be. Then somebody asks, which strategy is more important out of the three? Which do I need to implement first? That's a very good question. I mean, of course, I want to say all of them, but if you choose to do just one, I would say start with the product page recommendations. The Power Step page is likely the one that's going to give you the most revenue up front, but it's also likely the hardest one to do technically, where the product page recommendations are just very easy to implement with Clerk from most platforms, really. Because it's usually just a matter of syncing data to Clerk and then adding 2 banners on the page. And it provides a massive boost in conversions, both for getting people to find good alternatives, but also increase your average order value by showing the complementary items. And then, of course, if you also add this logged-in banner or visitor recommendations to show something related to the visitor history, you're even better off. So it's not the page that's going to give you the most. That's the add to basket page. But in terms of effort versus value, then I would say the product page is the one to start out with. Then somebody is asking, do you also have some best practices for B2B shops? Customers usually buy 20 plus items. So for instance, the add to cart page would probably annoy them. And that's a really good point. I will say it depends on the business. I have seen some businesses where an add to cart page might be obsolete because they usually just buy products directly from a search function or a category listing and so on. But in those cases, what I recommend is that you just make it easy to not see the power step for the rest of the session. We used to have, and we still have B2B sites that do it because it's actually also a good way of reminding B2B customers that there are other products they can discover. B2B customers tend to buy the same things again and again because they don't really go outside of that. It's maybe just something they need to quickly get over with, right? So actually promoting new products that they might be likely to be interested in is super important. Someone like Carlsberg, for example, I don't believe they use a Power Step page, but they use the recommendations on the product page extensively to help B2B customers see more items that go outside of their regular selection. So I will say, yes, you should be a little bit more aware with a Power Step page if customers normally, buy a lot of items from category listings to not show it every time. But what I will say also is you will not lose out if you just make it easy to not show it for the rest of the session. Because that way, people who actually prefer it, they'll get some new items they can see. And people who don't want to see it, they can just wing that off and, not see it for the rest of the session. And that's what I've seen some good examples with. Somebody's asking if I can do other e-commerce strategies using Clerk, and yes, you absolutely can. As I said, I focused on recommendations in this webinar, which is it's a really good and easy way to get started with doing good personalization. But Clerk also supports a search function that's fully automated and based on sales data and relevance matching with attributes and so on. We have an email system that is virtually our recommendations package, but integratable into any email client, so you can also personalize emails there. We also have an audience segmentation tool, which is in reverse of recommendations, where instead of finding the right products for a customer, you're finding the right customers for a marketing purpose. So that could be anyone who's interested in buying my Nike equipment should get an email on that. Anyone who's interested in buying from like very specifically Iron Man category can still get products from that. So help you make email marketing and ads even more relevant. And then lastly, we have this chat function, which again uses generative AI to have customers talk to it as if it was a supporter on your web shop, and then help them answer questions about their order status or products they want to buy, showing alternatives, asking more products, asking more information about a product they're browsing, and so on. And all of it is connected to the same core of Clerk, which we call Clerk Core. So it means that from just a single place, you'll be able to personalize and automate and even merchandise across virtually any aspect of your web shop where you show products. Then someone is asking, several retailers have introduced sponsored product listings where suppliers pay for placements that typically blend into search results. How do you see retail media tools as a supplement for retailers? Also a very good question. And this is actually very relevant to what I just mentioned. Clerk has a merchandising tool, which allows you to promote or remove or basically manipulate results across the entire suite of products that we have. So out of the box, of course, Clerk is completely conversion optimized. It means that we show the products that are most likely to cause a sale at a given point in time for that specific customer. Then some of you might have, let's say, margin rules where you actually want to promote some products more because they have a better margins for you. And you can do that with merchandising by sending that data to Clerk and then promoting items like that. It could also be, as based on your question here, that you have some suppliers that pay to be promoted in a search result, and you could do that as well because you can time campaigns. So you could create a merchandising campaign in Clerk that promotes all of Nike's products, for example, on a search for shoe, and in any shoe-related recommendations banners from a single campaign over a period of time of, say, a month. And that way you can actually use that to make agreements with your suppliers to own some more parts of the web shop for a limited amount of time, if you get a better deal on the shipments, for example. Merchandising can be used for a lot of things like this to control more what's being shown while still keeping Clerk's logic intact underneath, to some degree at least. Because if you choose to say, I want to promote all my Nike products, Clerk is still going to rank them based on what's most likely to sell out of the Nike products in the beginning. So I hope that answered the question. Really good questions so far. If you have more, just keep them coming. I love to make it part of a conversation here, so it's not just me just making things up here, of course. So if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate having them come through here. At least as far as I can see, that was the end of the question so far, but I'm just going to stay here for a little while. You can see one more came in here now. Do you use data plus item to find patterns and then present them as a report recommendations? For example, if a pattern emerges, that makes it obvious that item 1, item 2, and item 3 is most likely to be bought together, and a bundle discount is probably a great next step. Yes and no. Clerk does not do bundles specifically out of the box because it varies a lot between webshop platforms, whether there's a discount on the bundles and so on. But yes, we do analyze and figure out which products are very likely to be bought together. It's how our complementary products logic works, really, that if we can see that it's normal to buy a pair of shoes and a pair of shin guards together, and it's also normal to buy it from the same brand and the same color. Clerk will see that there's a connection there, so it's not just this shoe and this shin guard, but there's a concept which is the same shoe and the same shin guard being bought together. That's also how our complementary items can actually show items that have never been bought together. That's one of the limitations of the item-to-item collaboration, is that you actually need to have some sales together on them as well, right? Where Clerk can identify the patterns of this type of product to be shown together to promote some even better results in the complementary items. So again, while it's not the exact same algorithm that Amazon is using, it does a lot of steps on top of it to make it smarter and require less data by just mapping it better using predictive AI like that. Then somebody is asking, if I have more questions, where do I contact you? The best point would be to ask our support, and you can either reach those on support@Clerk.io by email, or by using the live chat function either on our website or in our help desk or in your my.Clerk.io backend. Of course, if it's more related to you want some optimizations on your site, then I highly recommend that you sign up for a free audit here, where we can go through some more concrete things. But if it's more related to just how Clerk works, or if you have a concrete question for something on your web shop, how we would approach that thing, then please don't hesitate reaching out to our support team, either by support@Clerk.io on email, or by live chat on our website and our help desk and in our backend. Someone is asking, does the recommendation strategies work just as good on a mobile as on desktop? Also a very relevant question, and yes, they do. I would say it's even more important on mobile, actually, because the web is more and more being designed mobile first, because so many of us, we also browse on mobile phones, right? And of course, the main difference usually comes down to how many products are you showing in a row. When it comes to design, Clerk is agnostic to design. You can say we have a design engine that allows you to tailor it entirely to what your web shop looks like, either with code or with a design editor. So if you already have a site that's responsive, then Clerk can mimic that entire design. Either in our onboarding team or your developer will be able to do that. And usually what I see is that on mobile, you would just either show one or maybe two products next to each other, but still have the same types of recommendations, honestly. Because also we're so used to scrolling on Facebook and so on that it doesn't matter that you have a long page, as long as it starts being relevant already from before you start scrolling, ideally, right? So yes, the exact same strategies work on desktop as they do on mobile. And it's the same setup you would normally have, just style to match mobile as well. Yeah, let me know if you have any more questions. Otherwise, in the meantime here, I'm just trading water. Just going to give you just a minute more to see if some more questions are going to come in. In case no more questions are coming in, then for the rest of you, I'll just want to say thank you very much for joining the webinar, and I hope you learned something. We like doing webinars and sharing content here at Clerk to just make sure that we use our expertise and get it out into the world. I would like to have way more automation, of course, on many more web shops in the world. So it's just really good to be working in an AI company that can help do that. And it seems like we are running out of questions now. People are writing thank you, and again, thank you so much for joining. And I hope that you've learned something, that you can go out and make your web shop even better than it already is. So have a fantastic day, and hopefully I'll see you out there someday.